Hello, this is Daniel, and today I'm going to be speaking about the Kurds and the rise of the leftist nationalist movement within the Kurdish lands. The Kurds are arguably the largest independent civilization without their own nation in the world, and for over 3 millennia they have faced oppression, betrayal, and attempted genocide. The Kurdish people have inhabited the Zagros and Taurus mountains of Western Asia for at least 5,000 years, and this has made quite a lot of people very angry. As we can see in the slide here, their homelands straddle the borders of a number of other countries, and while the borders and countries have changed over time, the way the Kurds have been treated has not. For at least 3,000 years, various empires and countries have trampled through their lands and generally followed one of two strategies. The first is your basic slaughter, enslavement, and forced relocation. The second is to recruit Kurdish fighters by promising them land and autonomy before betraying them and engaging in slaughter, enslavement, and forced relocation. Here's a short but not comprehensive list of empires and nations that have promised to reward the Kurds with autonomy before betraying them. The Persian Empire, the Ayyubid Empire, the Mongolian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Russian Empire, the British Empire, the USSR, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and most recently, the United States. They are understandably getting a little tired of this. There have been several attempts to form a cohesive Kurdish nation throughout history, but the current phase of Kurdish national identity got started in the late 19th century. Several political parties and organizations have formed in the last century, but they have predictably faced violence, oppression in response. Which brings us today and the rise of Kurdish left-wing movements exemplified by the Kurdistan Communities Union, known as the KCK, and the People's Defense Units, known as the YPG. The KCK is a coalition of left-leaning Kurdish nationalist parties that exist in the respective countries that overlap with Kurdish lands. Their primary objectives are the support and protection of Kurdish people and advocating for Kurdish national identity. The KCK has a 31-person governing body comprised of representatives from the respective states, and in the last decade or so has made great strides in unifying and defending the Kurdish people. Several military forces report to the KCK, but the largest and most well-known is the YPG. The YPG is a military force that works to defend Kurdish territory and provide aid and protection to refugees from the conflicts that surround their lands. They are most famous for the women's protection units known as the YPJ, which are military infantry units comprised entirely of women fighters, many of whom were victims of human trafficking committed by fundamentalist Islamist organizations such as ISIS. The YPG was instrumental in the defeat of ISIS and in the protection of Kurdish people during the Syrian civil war. In addition to their military activities, the KCK and YPG tried to provide material support for the people who live within Kurdish territories in the form of food, medical supplies, and building and maintaining infrastructure. They have a large social media presence and use public demonstrations and art shows in order to build solidarity amongst the Kurds. The surrounding states have responded with their usual mix of propaganda and state violence. The government of Turkey has repeatedly tried to get the YPG classified as terrorists by the international community. The image we see here is Turkish propaganda, which attempts to paint the KCK as the wholesome face of a terrorist network. Syrian defense forces have engaged in open combat with the YPG since the start of the civil war. Likely owing to their contributions in the fight against ISIS, most of the international community has been reluctant to follow suit. However, the Trump administration officially withdrew support for the YPG in 2018, and while not officially declaring them to be terrorists, has stated that the YPG is aligned with terrorist organizations. Since the outbreak of the Syrian civil war, the YPG has carved out a territory of northeast Syria that they call Rojava, and successfully defended it for several years now. To varying degrees, they effectively control much of their homeland and the other surrounding countries as well. However, the international community refuses to recognize them as an independent nation, and they have had great difficulty in getting supplies after the United States withdrew their support. Kurdish national identity has never been higher, and the YPG and the KCK are currently very popular amongst Kurds around the world. But it remains to be seen whether or not they'll finally gain their autonomy or once again be suppressed by another imperialist power.